Oh, hello. Do you think that Big Brother is watching? Or that the Illuminati are the oligarchs taking over the world? Have you had an encounter with a space alien today? The answer to those questions is yes. Then grab your hat. This is tinfoil hat time. Welcome back to tinfoil hat time. Hope you got your hats, because the oligarchy, it's one of them legitimate conspiracy theories. I mean, I usually just come close to conspiracy theories, but this might be the very first time I covered a true blue conspiracy theory. And we're not going to cover it in all its detail. I possibly couldn't. I just merely wanted to look at a little bit of modern research, a little bit of definitions, and a few intriguing examples, and how we could potentially not become quite as good as an oligarchy. Either both from a citizen standpoint, how can we sit back and say, I refuse to participate? And from a country standpoint, if our country decides that, we really need to do something about this, what can we do? For example, the Greek and Roman culture, they looked at this and said, it appears as though the same group of people and the same group of friends keeps getting elected. Clintons, Bush, excuse me, I had something in my throat. Clintons and Bushes and all this kind of stuff. But we had, they had that problem going in their world, and so what they started to do for government is people were randomly selected from the people in the city, and that seems to cover most of it. So, what is a oligarchy? Well, this is a specific type of political influence system. Not a whole lot different from corporatocracy, where a small group of people, like a small group of companies, can direct all of the political power. So if you look at it in terms of what is various types of political systems, it certainly is very much, and I couldn't even tell you the exact difference necessarily between that and between what you would call a corporatocracy, which is simply when the corporations simply run the government. We might be closer to the oligarchy rather than the corporatocracy, simply because we have a lot of what the shell of this political view system does is the person in charge is never the person right on the front line, so there's always a fall man. And so when you take that approach, then what you start to look at is you start to see that in our country right now, United States has really become an oligarchy for a long time. In fact, according to some people, it started with the I believe it was the Reagan presidency, when the what was the rule? I gotta find what the name of that one was again. That wasn't it. It's one of the rules that he put into place. It basically limited the amount of money that an individual group could donate. It's in one of the articles I have opened up here. I just got to track down which one that was. But regardless, we'll get there eventually. But basically what happens is when there were rules up until, I want to say it was the Reagan administration, where companies or groups could only donate a certain amount. It was very, very capped, which prevented political power. But that was lifted, and what ended up happening is now any company or any group can get together and do a whole lot more lobbying, such to the point that whoever has the money can generally buy their own politician. And that's really what the oligarchy stands for. So let's go ahead and jump over to comments before we fully get started here. So hello, Joey, first one on the comment mix, and hello, JJ Game, how are you? Oh boy, let's see, Mark, how's it going? I cannot pronounce your name. Zero Miki, is that it? Sorry if I got that wrong. Hey, Doomed Josh. Are you Doomed Josh? Okay. Oligarchy perpetuated by nepotism here in the U.S. Yep. Oligarchy is a form of power structure in which the power rests with a small number of people, and these people might be distinguished by nobility, wealth, family ties, etc. Yep. Kitty agrees. Oligarchies are bad, right? Oligarchies are bad. Yeah. Oligarchies are bad. Yeah. Okay. He agrees. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. My mic is too thick for the clip it came with, or whatever you call it. Super annoying. It doesn't even begin to fit. Huh. That's funny. I'm guessing the external clips or something. Okay. Regardless, I checked on news this morning. Of course, we did news last night, and I don't know if this article must have hit much later than after. I usually check the articles before I run the news. But there was a very fascinating article that was posted last night to Consumerists. This one made me scratch my head. Are you ready? You know what? This, in fact, even calls for a different banner. There we go. Corporatocracy. The Chamber of Commerce is it should say U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The United States Chamber of Commerce files a lawsuit to stop American consumers from filing lawsuits. We're going to let that spin for a moment. The United States Chamber of Commerce files a lawsuit to stop American consumers from being able to file lawsuits. So in other words, they want to make it a law in the country that a consumer may not sue a company they buy products from. Because, I mean, come on. We shouldn't be able to sue Equifax. I mean, what? Come on, they're just providing a service. A service I never directly did any business with them, and I don't really want anything to do with them. But, I mean, come on. Really? Come on. Really? So let's dig into this article. This is a fascinating one. United States Chamber of Commerce, which, by the way, is it is an insanely crazy company. Now, I'm a small business guy. I own a variety of small businesses, and I have been members of Chambers of Commerce in the past. I am not any longer members of Chambers of Commerce because I really see a Chamber of Commerce much like a union. They take your money and they really don't give you anything worthwhile. Oh, I get some discounts on special business events. Guys, you know what? Welcome to America in 2017. The majority of my business is not in my town. I do most of my business in Boston. That I don't do. I have a group in Seattle I do work with, and I have a group in Los Angeles I do a lot of work with. So I do a lot of work in a lot of different places, and a Chamber of Commerce is simply not a necessary thing for me. But the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I think, is a particularly evil company or corporation that simply needs to be absolved. I really think we need to get rid of it. They are the largest lobbying organization. $104 million spent alone last year. It's $104 million that went into politicians' pockets last year. Maybe we could have spread that around and helped feed some more people in this country. I don't know. 40 million more than any other group. Chamber also thinks U.S. Constitution is a mistake. The 6th and 7th Amendment don't apply to consumers. The mere fact you are a customer should strip you of your constitutional rights to sue banks and credit bureaus like Equifax when they open up bogus accounts or fail to protect sensitive data. See, and that's the problem. It's like, the reality is, some companies we do business with, we have to do business with. Some companies, we simply don't have any choice at all. Some companies we can choose. But a lot of times right now, we don't have a lot of choices. And that's where the oligarchy comes into play. We don't have a lot of choices. We can either choose a bad operating system from this company or a bad operating system from that company, unless we are wise enough to use Linux and support the free and open source system. Now, there is, of course, a discussion on the Librem 5 phone, and so it's worth bringing up. I still don't think that's going to be a good competitor. We have too much, and it was really funny because I was looking up print-on-demand services, because enough people have asked me for shirts that if I set up a print-on-demand store and attach it to the site, you could order something that I have authorized to sell, but I don't have to stock a bunch of it in my house. So that is an option. But one of the companies I was looking at, we have all kinds of cell phone cases. So I look into cell phone cases. Apple and Samsung. No, there are more than 2 smartphones out there, people. Now, obviously, I absolutely know the problem with trying to say, we're going to do all sorts of smartphone cases. There, you just can't. So I don't blame that at all. And I bring that up just to say that we're getting to that point where even in the cell phone market, I literally, as I've been watching a lot of videos, people don't seem to know that there's any other choice other than Samsung and Apple. And I wouldn't buy either. So we have to keep in mind that the oligarchy is a organization, and what's happened is if you follow the news media through the last, I think it's the last 30 or 40 years, what started as 50 to 70 different corporations, I think the number right now is 6. All news, all media, all production is owned by 6 companies. That's scary. Of course, the one place where we still in America have decent competition is cell phone markets. And of course, there is a merger. We have 4 companies. That's about to become 3. And of course, Comcast came out and said, under the Trump presidency, this is the time that we all need to get together and start buying each other up because this administration is not hostile towards mergers. And it should be hostile towards mergers because it's really, 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 really good for the couple people in charge. It's excessively bad for everybody else because if all of these companies are all owned by the same group, it's effectively a monopoly. It's not a technical monopoly. It's an oligarchy. So what started me getting on to thinking about this? Well, it wasn't just the discussion last night that we had fairly related to this. It actually probably goes back to, I watched John Oliver had a video this week, and I'm not a huge John Oliver fan, but he happened to have a very fascinating video this week, and I don't even remember what it was. If anybody knows, let me know, and I'll post a link to it. But basically, he was talking about the merger and all of these mergers, and he ended up talking about the system. And so in that case, that's kind of the challenge that we have to take an active stand. Now, at the same time, the catch-22 is we oftentimes are forced to go with one particular company. It's because we either have to support this oligarchical company or that oligarchical company. And that's why we need to have open paths for small businesses to get in there. And I would jump products to move to small businesses. That's the reality. But the challenge is that all of our devices, everything is trying to get the streaming tied to their service, the storage tied to their service, everything tied to their service, which makes it practically impossible for you to switch and jump back to any other group of any other service. And that's why I'm having a lot of strategic data plans in my office utilizing open source and Linux systems so that everything that I do is on free and open source platforms, so I'm not ever tied to any one group. Because suppose I get in really well liking this one particular service and then they kind of become part of one of these oligarchies, I can jump products. And I haven't lost a whole lot because the core of what I have in my data is all in free and open source software. And so that's the strategy that I encourage you to do and to look into. So let's look more at this article here. How does the Chamber of Commerce plan to stop the American people from being able to bring a lawsuit? Simple, by suing. A little bit of a pot calling the kettle black. Chamber of Commerce, along with dozens of others, including the American Bankers Association, the Financial Services Roundtable, have filed suit against the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which, by the way, is just a smokescreen organization anyway, but in theory they do some decent things. Of course, it was set up under the Obama administration, so it's evil. Frankly, this thing served a good purpose. All right. Okay, an actual government agency, although they're some on Capitol Hill, rather it weren't so. They're trying to stop a bureau rule that would limit banks and other financial services' ability to strip consumers of their day in court. So what's going on here? Would you stop with your... Yeah, Facebook and Twitter are blocked. Silly website. Okay, so what's going on here is that, of course, the CFPB released a ruling a couple weeks back, maybe about a month or so back now, that says that certain institutions may not force their users into a binding arbitration. Well, that really makes people like Wells Fargo and Equifax mad, because that means that if they're actually caught doing something wrong It has to go public into a big case, and while the lawyers get the most in the class action lawsuit, again, at least the company gets penalized. Now, I still think we're way too soft, because I think we should go back and have more of a biblical model. Hey, you intentionally broke the rule because it would be very profitable. That means you forfeit all the profits and you pay 3 times damage to anybody that you do. That would clean up corporate America real fast. But we have an oligarchy, so that's not going to happen. But this right here is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is a major lobbying system, and they're going ahead and fighting against this. Which, by the way, it's the same thing going on against Title II, because what we're starting to see is over, I don't know the statistics exactly, but over 70% of Americans say leave Title II and net neutrality rules alone. And Pi doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. He is simply going to do whatever the ISPs want because they have an oligarchy here. And they're going to be going ahead and doing what they want to do regardless. It doesn't matter what the majority of people want. And that is the significance, is that in an oligarchy system, the average person, despite having the overwhelming voice, has zero impact on decision making. I just think that a company should not be allowed to give any money to any politicians at all. Nope, none. Done. That would do it, you know. And cap the amount that any personal individual could give as well. That way everybody has an equal voice and an even system in what they're doing. So, of course, this is about forced arbitration. So forced arbitration is when a company inserts a paragraph or two into the customer agreement that they never actually read, but they agreed to anyway, saying that the legal disputes must be handled outside the legal system. So basically what happens is with this Wells Fargo case where, you know, millions of accounts were created in people's names, if the binding arbitration holds, that doesn't have to go public. And every one of those cases goes in to an arbiter where the decision is completely private and nobody necessarily, you know, it's all and the arbiter, by the way, is the friend of the company, appointed by the company, and what they say goes and there's no appeal. That's not America, people. That's not America. That's fascism. That is fascism. My rule all the way, my decision, it doesn't matter, no equal grounding. That's what these companies want. That's what this group wants. And this group should be called out for being a communist group of... Never mind, I'm not going to say that word. And frankly, I think they need to be disbanded. I think the United States Chamber of Commerce needs to be disbanded. Disband them. They're too powerful. So that's kind of what that was about. Let's go ahead and have a look at some comments here. Let's see. Kitty's good, oligarchy's bad. Agreed. They want to stop lawsuits with lawsuits. Yep. Greetings, Anthony. JJ Game is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard out of a government. We are getting abused as consumers at this point. They're taking our money, giving poor service, and leaving no alternatives. Yep. I just left exactly 200 character comment. That's cool. All right. Hey, Tommy Norwood. How's it going? The cell phone case is super annoying. I know exactly what you mean. I see all these nice cases, but no one compatible with my phone, even though I have a modern and great phone. Yep. Now I'm being discriminated against for having a condenser microphone. I have to buy my mic clip separately due to my mic's thickness. Chances of me finding one are slim to none. Oh boy. Hey Morris, how's it going there? Oh boy. So I want to go ahead and we already talked a little bit about what the oligarchy is from this system. So I actually wanted to go ahead and look at the Wikipedia article because it actually had a lot of the kind of emerging things from the United States, which some studies came out around 2014, which kind of said, yeah, the United States is really starting to look like an oligarchy here. Of course, we have the Russian Federation. But here in the United States, there's many contemporary authors who have cited this. Reemergence of the American financial oligarchy is quite recent, a structure she delineated as being the most advanced in the world. The oligarchy and democracy operate with a single system, and American politics is a daily display of their interplay. Top 1% of the U.S. population by wealth in 2007 had a larger share of total income at any time since 1928. 2011, according to PolitiFact and others, the top 400 wealthiest Americans have more wealth than half of all Americans combined. I have to stop right there because the degree of wealth is not necessarily indicative of the oligarchy. It's what is being used with that wealth is where we have to come into play. So we have to make some delineation with that. That just because there is a wealthy group does not mean it's a wealthy group that's directing the politics. The oligarchy is when that group does direct the politics, and that's what that important part happens to be. And so, there's a lot of people who've started to look at this, and even going back, I started to watch some documentaries on this topic today, and, allegedly everything back from the Spanish-American War was simply an oligarchical fight over the sugar plantations in Cuba, which makes sense because who are the richest companies in the world? Well, the Koch brothers with their sugar and the oil companies. Go white gold and black gold, they call it. So, those people who control those commodities have some of the most wealth. And it's scary the amount of political power that they actually wield. And that's a danger for the rest of us. So that is certainly worthy of consideration. Hey, Mark Perez, how's it going? Fat Elvis, greetings. 500 million people will die in 10 minutes after the first nuclear exchange. Not much time to pray. Nuclear winter will follow along with the worldwide famine. Do you know something I don't know? Did a nuclear bomb go off? I'll get the marshmallows. So, yeah, I looked at the articles 2014. A lot of articles came out in 2014 looking at that. This was an interesting one here, having a look at these charts here. So this, again, is looking at the percentage of wealth controlled by the upper 1% of the population. Again, the finances doesn't have a lot to do with it. It's just what do the people with the finances do, and oftentimes they do. So you can see here in Russia, again, this is right at the collapse. So right at these collapses is when wealth starts to move around as stock markets collapse. But what you see here in Russia is the graph demonstrates the top 1% of the people, and then the percentage over here on the left bar shows you what percentage of the wealth income that is. So you can see from the 1925s until 1985, the top 1% of the country only controlled 4% of the wealth, which isn't all that bad. And I'm not against people being good and accumulating wealth. That's not the problem necessarily. But then what happened right here is this was the collapse the collapse of the Soviet Union and the formation of Russia. Bing! Now they own 28% of the income. So looking at the United States, so here's the United States, and right here is when, like I said, it was Reagan that decreased, or basically he removed the cap on what a company could donate to political, and boom, it goes up. And now 20% of the wealth in this country is owned by the top 1% of the people. Now, there's an expression, we find it in business a lot, and of course you hear it a lot in other places. The rich get rich and the poor get poor. Not all of that, and some people say, well, that's just because the poor are necessarily doing lazy things, and that's not always true. There is a lot of that is true. I have worked with a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, and particularly a lot of poor kids in Big Brothers Big Sisters and other related organizations that I've done work in, and I found a shocking degree of consistency. I think, do I have something on my chin? I don't know. Maybe I just need to shave. But there's a shocking degree of wealth accumulated with buying useless crap constantly having the televisions on, which is kind of funny because I have two neighbors here in this complex that I know, and they're both fairly poor individuals, and both of their houses, their televisions are always on. They cannot make their bills, but their whole house is so full of knickknacks. I'm afraid of a fire breaking out somewhere because there's a lot of fuel to go into that fire. Whereas I'm kind of a minimalist guy. This room here is the most cluttered room I have, and it's really not all that cluttered. You go to the rest of my house, there's pretty much nothing there. It's kind of funny, actually. But that's kind of that thing. A lot of the reason poor people don't have a lot of money is, in reality, a lot of them spend the money they do get pretty frivolously, a lot of times just on crap that's just not necessary or not important. Whereas wealthy people generally tend to reinvest the wealth into other ways of making money. That is certainly one part of it. But another part of it happens to be the fact that the spending power of a dollar is going down while the prices of services is going up. So, if you look at the average job in my town right now, the average job in my town right now for a high school or young college kid is about $8 or $9 an hour. Here's the scary thing. And in fact, I even went out and I was looking around to see what different jobs pay. And somebody offered me a job. It was kind of funny. Somebody offered me a job. It was like $9.25 an hour. When I was in college about 20 years ago, I'm trying to think, when was the last time? I think the last time I had your standard hourly punch the time card job, I want to say it was 20 years ago. I want to say it was like 17 years ago maybe. I made $9 an hour. After 20 years, this company, which is a very similar job to what I had back then, 25 cents more an hour starting wage. After 20 years. The apartment that I got when I quit that job and moved to this town to go to graduate school, the apartment I was renting costs $500. Was it five? No, it was $550 when I moved out. I think it was $520. That same apartment right now is $825. So that has gone up $300 per month in that period of time, while the wage for a comparable job up 25 cents an hour. That's the loss of the spending power of a dollar. And not only that, but we are forced to buy certain products. We are forced to buy health insurance. It feels like we're not forced to, and I certainly don't. But watch out for streaming services. Watch out for cable packages. Watch out for expensive phone plans. Audit your phone plans. Figure out how to use less data. Get that bill lower. Because I know people that could very easily spend $500 a month on cell phone bills. That's insane, by the way. But that's that reality, that functionality of it is we are spending more and more and more, and the basic services cost more and more and more. In fact, the biggest one right now is housing. A lot of other things are fairly comparable in price. They haven't gone up all that much, but housing, particularly in the town I'm in now, housing is so expensive. Especially the scary thing is in the places where people can afford it the least, it costs the most. I'm in a college town, and the apartment complexes in this town know they are going to have a 90 or plus or higher % occupancy rate. They can charge whatever they want because their average person who's just a college student going to school, they're going to get out student loans. They're not even going to think about how much it costs. They'll be like, cost for college, just get more loans out. And that's what's happening where college kids are leaving college with right now an average of $35,000 a year in $35,000 in student loan debt, and only 19% of college graduates can find a sustainable job. That's not a job in their field. That's just a sustainable job. If you go on to get your master's or doctorate because they're like, get that because it's better, your chances of getting a job, sustainable job, drops. Okay? I have a PhD, and when I left the college to start my businesses and I needed something else to kind of bridge in the gap, This is the thing that pissed me off the most. First, I looked at the plants that I actually had degrees in. I'm overqualified. Overqualified for all of them. They don't want to hire a PhD. They want to hire somebody with an associate's degree. You can pay them a lot less. The one that pissed me off more than anything in the world. Oh, I'm going to go on fire. I'm going to go on fire. You want to talk about the value of education? They want to preach to you the value of the education, the value of going out. Get your education, get your education, get your education, get your education. And I got news for you. I have a PhD in biomedical research. I spent 6 years in a cancer lab. I know how to make protein gels, make DNA gels, utilize radio-labeled antibodies, do film transfers, transfections, cell culture. I know all these things. It's so ingrained in me. I know all those things. Well, a job opened up for a hospital lab in the town that I was in, and I applied for it. And she said, I'd love to hire you. You don't have a lab certificate. I have a PhD in the field of biomedical laboratory research, and I need a little certificate to spin some blood cells into centrifuge? Would you like me to nuclear cytosolically extract those cells? Because I can. I can. I am so overqualified to be a lab technician, but they didn't turn me down because I was overqualified. They turned me down because despite I have a PhD in biomedical research, I still have to get a separate certificate to work in a hospital lab. Our education system in America is broken. Think about that next time they say, get a college degree. It's going to help you with your job. I got news for you. Nothing that I do right now has anything to do with my college degrees. Everything I do for my income, which is a decent income, everything I do is self-taught. And I've actually had one person ever ask for college background in web design work. Yeah, I didn't get the job. They went with some fool who couldn't design a website, but he had a college degree. That's why that company's, I don't even think they're in business anymore. That's the reality. Let's have a look at some comments, shall we? Ooh, you know what? There we go. There's some kitty comments. Right, kitty? Yeah? Okay. Oh, boy. Sue the chamber so they cannot sue whoever sues them for suing the customers for suing the companies. I just got cross-eyed. What did I miss about Oligarchy? 30-second summary. Go. Oligarchy is controlled by, is when political and business interests are controlled by a small group of people. That's an oligarchy. I think the North Korea is likely to drop the nuke on us. They've been testing missiles for a while. No, I think I'm not sure they're going to get to us directly. They might get to one of our territories or something over there, but yeah. More college debt than credit card debt. Yes, the average credit card debt is, is it $9,000? I think it's the average credit card debt per family. Or maybe not. Actually, it might be more. In fact, no, it is more. Credit card debt is higher than that, but I think $9,000 is the average amount per credit card, but I think your average family has like 3 credit cards. And because the student loan debt surpassed credit card debt this year. That's kind of that. If you can hack it, you're better being self-employed. Yep, that's the thing. Be self-employed. Be self-employed. And that's the thing, I actually let one of my biggest clients go this week because she drove me crazy. I don't deal with crazy. I know I seem crazy at times, but I don't deal with crazy. So, I think it's my second biggest client, but I let him go because life is too short to deal with that kind of crap. I'd rather bust it a little bit harder and find a few people to replace that income. And it's not a substantial income because I have a lot of different clients. So the loss of one isn't a huge deal, but I might feel it. I don't know. Oh boy. It's not for everyone, but with a great work ethic and willing to sacrifice in the short term in favor of the long term. Sad state of affairs is when it seems better to have a trade vocational skill versus a high level education. Absolutely. Let's talk about total debt. I should have specified. Total debt. Let's see. More college debt than credit card debt. Okay, wait. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, I forget where the credit card debt is right now, but I know that the college debt hovers at 35,000, and like I said, that it just surpassed credit card. Maybe the credit card debt, average credit card debt's like 29, maybe. Let me look that up real quick. I'll just do a U.S. statistic, see if I can find that. All right, nerdwallet.com. Are you going to give me numbers or are you going to give me junk? Okay, so according to this, 16,000, like 17,000 is the average for credit cards. Let me transfer over so you can see this. All right, so right now they're saying the average is 17,000 for credit card debt, 182,000 on mortgages, 29,000 on auto loans, 50,000 on student loans, and any other type of debts, 137. Okay, now this you'll see is the average household. So this is not per person, this is per household. That's why the student loans is up, because your average household would have 2 people with student loan debt. So, yep. So 16,000, so 8,000 per person. That might be about right. That might be about right. I don't know. So that's that. Very wise move. You'll be in business longer because of making that sacrifice. Look up U.S. debt clock. Yeah, I don't look up the U.S. debt clock much. It's a little discouraging. And mind-boggling. Epilepsy warning. Epilepsy warning. Okay, so here's our national debt. Yeah, look at that. Woohoo! Going up a couple thousand. There's per citizen. So our debt per citizen is 61,000. You know, I'm not actually a huge fan necessarily of taxing the wealthy, but one of the things that got me with this whole oligarchy situation is looking at the. I'm gonna get rid of this in case there is any epilepsy people out there, because this thing could trigger you. During the financial collapse in, was that 2008, 2010 period of time, we had all these bailouts go on. And then if you remember, all those companies just turned around and gave their CEOs that drove the companies into needing bailouts thousands and, actually millions of dollar bonuses. I really think that what should have happened at that point in time is, you know what, guys? All you companies did this. We're going to need you guys, the heads of the companies that are making millions. We're going to need you guys to kick in, because the American people are losing their jobs and they're losing their houses by the droves. And we just can't afford to give our money to you wealthy people. But the fact that we're an oligarchy and a corporatocracy, that tells you that that wouldn't happen. But in a decent society with being run by decent humans, then the people at the very top, they should make a bigger sacrifice, especially since they actually caused the mess to begin with. Again, I'm not necessarily for taxing the bejeebers out of the rich. I'm not for that at all. But at the same token, what I'm looking at is the fact that our government took our tax dollars that we never got a break on taxes for losing everything. And I'm one of the people, I lost everything. I lost about everything in that period of time. And we all lost everything. In fact, not only did I lose a lot of what I had a bigger tax bill that year with no income, because the company got to write off the loss on a house that I couldn't pay for anymore. And I mean, that was a bad situation all across the country. It was a bad situation. And in light of all of that, all that happened is the government took our tax money, handed it off to companies who mismanaged their wealth to begin with, and then those companies turned around and gave $1 million bonuses to their CEOs. Government should have said, you know what, guys? No, y'all caused a problem. You want to bail out? Bail yourself out. You got a CEO sitting on 16 yachts. Sell a few of them. Crimp your lifestyle down and see what it's like to live on $30,000 and then lose everything like all of your customers and like all the people in this country, and then see what happens. But the fact that we are an oligarchy, means that those people with all that money, all that power, us little peons, it doesn't matter. And that's the challenge. That's why we need to get away from that. Oh boy. Oh boy. Nope. Us debt clock and look at total by average and do the mean median mode. Let me see if there's another one. Yeah, I'd have to see what you're looking at there. Okay, I have a daughter in high school, and I'm conflicted about pushing her into higher education and its debt load or an alternative skill. I'm really trying to encourage her to look into the tech industry. Okay, let me tell you my advice to doomed Josh's daughter. Number one, and this comes from me, I like my education. I value my education. I value the education I have. I think it was a great thing. I went through it with very little debt. I paid off all the student loans long ago. I'm very fortunate. In fact, I'm one of the few people. Oh, the kitty's being cute. Or is he going to move? Okay, never mind. I'm one of those few people who paid them off really, really early because I didn't really want them. And I actually only took out a tiny fraction. I only took out a couple $1,000s in student loan debt. But here's my advice is number one is you figure out what you want to do. And then number two, you figure out, do you need a degree to do that? Okay. If you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, you don't need a degree. If you want to be a computer technician, you do a technical school or a trade school and you learn a whole lot from YouTube videos. If you want to be a writer, just sit down and start doing some writing. Because if you want to be a writer, particularly a freelance writer, people care a whole lot more about do you have a portfolio than they care do you have a degree. Because the degree doesn't tell me anything about your competency in writing. But if you have a portfolio and I can read what you have, I can read if you have competence in writing. So you have to start by determining what it is you want to do. And then you ask that critical question. Do I need a degree to do that? If the answer is yes, I need a degree, then you find a school that is going to give you a good amount of education for the amount of money you spent. Avoid pedigrees. People don't care where you go to school. Don't go to school somewhere because it's cool or because it's trendy or you think you get a good education, because I got news for you. You get out of your education what you put into it. I did my bachelor's at a very small state school in the town that I grew up in, okay? And in that respect, I got way more out of my education than somebody who goes to Harvard who pledges at his fraternities every night. Because he's drunk off his mind and I was sitting down and studying, okay? Now, a couple other general tips. If you're doing your undergrad, do not go to a big school like Penn State. You want to go to a smaller school. Start with community colleges, go to a smaller state school. Those smaller schools, and the reason is you will get one-on-one direct interaction with your professors. If I go to Penn State for a writing degree or a chemistry degree, I'm working with a TA way more than I'm working with a professor, and I'm not going to have the experience of an aged professor in helping me with my work. But where I went to school for my undergrad, which was a very small school, I got direct interaction with the best and the best of the field, not graduate students who are still learning this stuff. And trust me, I got my degrees in chemistry. I was a TA in chemistry because that's what we had to do. I never learned chemistry until I was a professor. You want to have a professor who's been a professor for a while. Okay, if you want to get a graduate degree, you go to a big school like Penn State. Way better education than a small school that gives graduate degrees. So that's my take on college education. Go there if it is in alignment with your goals. Don't go there because everyone should be going to college. Don't rule out technical schools. Don't rule out your 2-year schools. And that's kind of what you do. And I value the education, and you have to value it. But when you go there with a serious intent to learn. You're not going for a college experience. You're not going for all this other crap. You are going to learn. That is your full-time job. Sure, you'll have some friends. Sure, you'll visit some coffee shops, but you are not going for an experience. It's a very expensive experience. Trust me. It's a place to go to learn, and you treat it as your job. That's my advice to your daughter. All right. Because of George Soros. Okay. 3 Equifax execs, including CFOs, sold their shares before the news. Yes, that is correct. The CFO, and I forget what the other ones were. Yeah, oh, we didn't know anything about this. Yeah, we didn't know anything at all. Yeah, we believe you. The rich are actually taxed at low effective rates due to tax deductions and loopholes. Storing money overseas and in tax havens also hurts us. Instead of repatriation, taking money to be brought back in. Yeah. Hey, Zomp 1975, how's it going there? How about prison? What about prison? George Soros is the ringleader. Should be in jail. How about death by firing squad? We don't want to advocate for killing anybody unless they're breaking in my house late at night. Peak college, sad days. Okay. Prison for those hiding money overseas, 20 years. Make an example of people and corporations. Yeah. Don't always specialize, I reckon. Society needs generalists too. Yep. A PhD is somebody who knows more and more and more about less and less and less. Problem is 99.9 repeating percent of teachers are communists. That's a loud one. Teachers are not communists. That's a loud minority. I would agree. It's, your SJWs and whatever else, they're a very small portion of the population. They're just excessively loud and annoying, and that's the problem. Look at the homosexuality movement. It is a perpetually low amount of the population that is actually homosexual. They're just extremely loud. And for better or for worse. It's just, but that's what happens, in case of, in fact, that's what happens with the oligarchy, It's a very few of them. They're just very loud because money talks quite a bit. My 2 comments were linked. All right, let's see. Get rid of the debt clock. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about here? I think we talked about that a lot. Let's just go ahead and chat about the, what we can do about it. Well, on a national level, the first and best thing we could do, number 1, is we need to remove lobbyists entirely. Get rid of lobbyists. Make it so a company may not give political contributions in any way, shape, or form, and individuals may only give up to a certain amount, and make that amount low enough that your average person could also contribute. Literally. Number 2 is you institute very rigorous term limits. 1 or 2 terms. And then you make sure that the salary is non-existent. I was chatting with, who was I chatting with? Oh, I was chatting with my accountant yesterday. Or was it Friday? Whatever it was. Yeah, I guess that was yesterday. So I was chatting with my accountant yesterday, and he was telling me stories about some friends of his who were, congressmen at years and years and years ago. And back at that time, the pay you got was only the cost it took to travel and stay in D.C. when you were there for session. Every time else you were back and you still had to make your own income. We should get back into something like that. Being a politician should not be a job. It should be a duty. It should be a responsibility. So we should have very firm, very rigid term limits, and the people should not get paid any more than would help reimburse their costs of travel and doing business for the state. Other than that, they should rely on their own sources of income to be able to do that. Of course, you're getting rid of the lobbyists. You're getting rid of the corporations donating any money. And that way it removes the oligarchical position and the wealth from being able to make any decisions and choices. And then people can focus on what is best for the people best of the time. That's what the people can do, or what the country can do. What can we do as people? Well, I'm going to hold back to this, and I've said this so many times. I think it's a solution to a lot of problems. Become a minimalist, people. Require less stuff. Spend less money. Don't be so happy to get out there and get all these streaming services. Get as few services as you possibly need. Buy your devices on the used market. Don't run out and buy a brand new iPhone or a brand new Samsung phone simply because it's a brand new phone. Don't have 1,000 streaming services in your house. Okay? Don't buy all the latest and greatest just because it's available. Take advantage of that used market. Take advantage of free and open source. Don't use Windows or Mac operating systems where you don't need to. And for your average computer user, Linux is going to do perfectly fine. It will. If you need some specialized piece of software, first, anybody who's like, I really need specialized software, 90% of those people, you could easily find an alternative software package. You don't need Adobe. Everything Adobe Suite can do, you can do on Linux with free and open source software. I can't speak to the CAD software. There isn't an open CAD software. I don't know about AutoCAD. But are you talking about, I know how to use AutoCAD? Well, I got news for you. You didn't come out of the womb knowing how to use AutoCAD. You had to learn how to use it. Learn how to use the free and open source software packages. Now, there's some, obviously, that you cannot necessarily do, and there's some work situations where you need to maintain using that computer, the other computer systems, your mainstream computer systems. So focus on those, use those computers only for what you need to, and then use the Linux systems for whatever else you happen to need. That's kind of the approach that you need to take at it. So from the national level, we just need a big political reform. From the individual level, because our society is made up of individual people. And the better we get as people, with our own integrity, with our own character, with our own whatever we're doing, the better we get as people, the better off we are going to be. And we need to keep that in mind. And so with that being said, I'm loving the minimalist life because I buy a whole lot less stuff. Learn how to eat, so eat a lot healthier because you can cut your meals down to, I usually only eat 1 meal a day, sometimes 2. You just got to eat right to do that. Eliminate sugars and wheats and things like that. I might have had a little blip in my internet. Eliminate the sugars and the wheats and the breads and the carbs from your diet. You'll actually need to eat less. And I hear people a lot like, oh, I need to, you can't speak for me because I got all these kids. You know what? No. Stop buying your kids all of the junk food. Because the junk food just makes them hungrier and then they eat more. If you eat a lot of good vegetables and you eat a lot of fats and proteins, healthy fats and protein, no, we're not talking vegetable oil. That's toxic. We're talking real, natural fats, proteins, fruits, and vegetables. You can cut your meals down to 1 or 2 meals a day. Okay? Do things like that where you can spend less money, save more money, get on a budget, get on a plan. Cut down your lifestyle. Ditch those streaming services. You don't need them anyway. I can't think of a single thing I'm like, oh, I need Netflix. No. I can get some things. There's a lot of resources. You can watch free content online legally. Examine those. And then figure all those out. And if you really have to, I'm not convinced you have to. Cut that junk out of your life. Because all the fat, rich cats we keep talking about are simply fat and rich cats because we keep on giving them our money. We need to learn to stop. And that's why I like the minimalist lifestyle. I haven't bought a new phone since Verizon instituted we're not going to give you phones on contracts anymore. We're going to give a much better deal. Where you pay for it outright and you just pay every month for it, like a payment plan. That's crazy. These phones are getting more expensive than the first car payment I ever had. Creepy. The phones are certainly more expensive than the first cars I've ever had. But what ends up happening is we start wasting more and more and more money. But ever since Verizon started doing that, and it's like, buy your phone here, I have never put a phone on their plan like that. Never. As soon as that happened, used phone market, that's where I went. I've had great experience on the used phone market. All right, let's go ahead and let's switch over to the Kitty while we read some comments. Not just a U.S. problem. I'm originally from Europe. It's a worldwide problem. Expensive education, worth nothing at all. Yep. It's true. Every teacher communist. These are in some types of groups. Do you sleep with your foil hat on since last night? No, I took it off right after the show last night because it was hot. This thing's hot, actually. If you don't know what Joe's talking about, I frequently go on and continue my chat Friday night on Big Daddy Linux's channel as well. So last night we were having crazy hat day, and so I wore the tinfoil hat all last night. Yeah, those are mainly students who are SJWs. Yep. When politicians talk about repatriation, I want them to start talking about prison. Yep. Plenty of professors who think ST foolish. Oh, it's foolish. Who think it's foolish. Yep. Get rid of the Clinton Foundation. Yep. Term limit for senators and representatives. Yeah, term limits for everybody. Term limits for everybody. Senators and representatives should have the same health insurance like everyone else. Absolutely. And they should have the same salary as everyone else. You're a public servant, dude. Yeah, Thirsty Fox, you're late. Sorry, man. Political Monkey. I want a constitutional amendment to get corporate money out of politics, and we need to pay them a salary. I'm pretty sure being non-corrupt politician is a very difficult job. That is. That's true. And that's exactly what I'm saying. Get corporate money out. No more corporate contributions, and no rich contributions either. You know, we should cap even the amount a person can give to a campaign fund. Best job of the future: app developer, computer systems analyst, nurse practitioner, physical therapy, health services, physician, assistant dental hygienist, market research analyst, and tinfoil hat haberdasher. Yes, tinfoil hat haberdashers are a thing of the future, by the way. Use Cody, get a free hack so you can watch for free. See, there's some ways that you can watch stuff without paying online that are illegal, and there's ways that are legal. You need to hunt down the legal ways, folks. Hunt down the legal ways. Tax havens and safe places, 2 ways of rent seeking. Don't start saying safe places, though. I start thinking all SJW again. Politicians deserve to be paid, not just the amount not the amount they're paid. By the way, chaplains are a waste of taxpayer money. Pray on your own time. Anymore, I think I might agree with you. You know, we don't represent any specific state religion. I think I would agree with you. That's right. The Christians said, I agree. Chaplains probably don't need to be there. That's right. I don't think we should have any representation. But nobody should be barred from praying whatever their faith happens to be in the duty of their office. That's the counterbalance, I'd say. But yeah, I'd agree with you. Because the problem with having paid chaplains, congressional chaplains and things like that in this, I'm guessing you're talking about the governmental chaplains. The problem with those is now we get into this crazy pluralistic question of whose faith is right. And do we have to have a paid chaplain for every religion? What about the flying spaghetti monster? Do we only do the ancient religions? Do we, what defines a religion? And so, yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that at all. Completely. Sadly switched back to using Google services because of the convenience. But thank you for making me more aware of the free and safe software. See, here's the thing is use the Google services. I just want people to realize the dangers involved and to only use the Google services when you must. Meaning, don't store everything you have up there. I'll use Google Docs if I'm passing a document to somebody, but I'd be brain dead to write every single document I have in Google Docs and think of downloading it as an after fact. That is exactly what the big companies have wanted us to do, though. They want us to get used to doing everything on the cloud services and don't even bother saving the document to your computer because it's all safe in the cloud. But there's challenges with that. You need to be doing the documents on actual devices, have a copy for yourself, and only send it to the cloud to share it with somebody who needs it. I'm not dissing that concept of it. I'm just against what the system is teaching the kids now is to do everything in the cloud and only grab a copy to your computer if you need it. That's a danger. That's a danger. But you're thinking about it. That's great. That's exactly what we need to do. There's some open source CAD programs, but I've not used them. At first glance, they do not look too bad. There are 3D design programs as well. Yeah, I use Blender, which is 3ds Max, open source 3ds Max platform, and frankly, the thing's awesome, Be constitutional amendment that citizens vote for raises for senators and representatives. Absolutely. And pay cuts. I thought one of the open source CADs was simply called OpenCAD. Am I wrong about that? I haven't used it or looked at it at all. I've not used AutoCAD either. So Katy Perry dropped out of school and she's doing okay. Yep. Yeah, so did Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Ben Franklin never went. So Thomas Edison never went to school. So yeah, that's good. Yeah. Ditch cable for one streaming service. I ditched cable. I don't have any streaming services. I have internet. That's all I need. 2 older laptops with Windows XP. Put Linux Mint on both of them and brought them back to life. Linux rocks. Sweet. Yes, it does. Absolutely. Phone is $130. Unlimited phone service, $38 a month. Taxes included. Sweet. Where do you get in your phone service for that? That's pretty good. Now in Linux Mint. Excellent for my needs. Better than Ubuntu. Yeah, I like Linux Mint a lot better than Ubuntu. I do like my Ubuntu Mate computer, but I did find out I cannot stress it like this. Even running this exact same box, running Mate, I can't do live streaming. The system will all freak out. This exact same computer. Just swap out the Linux Mint hard drive for a Mint Mate hard drive, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So there's something goofy in there that's not working right. But I love Mate for the purpose I use it for. It rocks. It's my my personal data backup computer. Ubuntu is the whore of Linux. All right. As long as it's not the whore of Babylon. All right. Okay. Not only do they invade our privacy, we pay them for the privilege. Yep. Use a VPN. There you go. Tax dollars shouldn't be used for the NFL. I agree with that. Checked out LibreCAD. That must be the one I'm thinking of. Which, no, I have not looked at personally. Imagine Scientology chaplains and Islamists in Congress, not to mention their 6-figure salary. Yeah, that's crazy. The cloud is spyware. Yep. Only one reason I use Dropbox at all is my school files are automatically on whatever of the operating systems I boot into. 4 total. That's a good use for it, I'm not a fan of Dropbox. Actually, one of the things, though, I plan on doing sometime soon is creating either a Nextcloud or an OwnCloud build, which will allow me to do the same thing, only utilizing my service instead of theirs. Cloud is just another computer that you do not own and don't know where it is located. Yep. Political Monkey, that's even more blanked up than now. Straight Talk. Straight Talk, okay. Look into that. We have there's one a friend of mine uses called Public. I think it's Republic Wireless. I think, which is really cheap. Apparently, I haven't looked into it only briefly. All right. Well, I think I've hit the end of my comments. I've hit the end of my content, and I have an early morning tomorrow, so I gotta jump off here now. So I think we will go ahead and end with feeding the kitty, and we'll go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. So I hope you've enjoyed the discussions on the oligarchy. Just a reminder, I think next Friday we will be doing a book release. So the new book will be out. And I will be, I'll be slowly rolling out the ebooks and stuff. And actually I added the e-commerce to my main site. Pardon, there's no SSL there yet. My hosting company's been an idiot. And I should be changing that this week. But you can actually go over to ourwalkinchrist.com and actually buy my copy of Testing and Temptations directly from that, and I'll be having the new book up there by Friday. In fact, Friday morning, in fact, is when the new banners and the new book will be up there. So if you want to check that out in advance, we'll go ahead and do that. Of course, the patrons have a free copy of the ebook already waiting for you on Patreon, and as well as some readings and some arguments for why I wrote the book are up there as well on an 1.5-hour video that I did just for the patrons. So you can check that out, patreon.com/TomM. And let's read the last couple more comments, then we'll feed the kitty. College, Windows 10, and Google services is heavily used. Yep, indeed. Look forward to the video. Sweet. File sharing between an OS is simple. FAT32 partition away. Just Google open source CAT, I'm guessing, and you'll see what's available. There's also the website. It's like Alternative 2. You can type in a program, and it'll show you all the various alternatives to that, including are they open source or commercial and what platforms they work on. Using Windows 10, but I also use free and open source programs. With it, I'd use Linux Mint 18.2 full time, but SuperTux card is better on Windows. Really? Huh, that's funny. That's hilarious. All right, we should do another stream probably Wednesday as well, but we're going to go ahead and feed the kitty, and then we will see you guys later. Yes, you know what you're getting, don't you? Yeah, over here, over here, over here. All right, good night, all.